intention setting workshop. I'm Phaedra. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystick, Physick, Astrology. Most of you here in the Sidereal Insights group already know me. But for those of you who might be new to the group or just joining us for the first time for a new moon intention setting live stream, I'm Phaedra. I'm a Western Sidereal astrologer, and I use Western Sidereal astrology in my practice to help you reconnect basically with your purpose for coming into this incarnation. And my aim with the live streams that we do here in the group and on the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page is always to provide guidance on how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. So essentially, how we can choose to respond to our planetary transits rather than simply react. So what we do with the new moon intention setting practice, what I'm going to do just quickly is run through by sidereal rising sign what house this particular new moon is going to fall in for you. So grab a pen and paper. You can make a note of what house, this is going to fall in according to your natal chart. And then you can make a note of the themes. I will touch on what themes fall under that house. And then once we've run through each rising sign, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the Aries archetypes and Aries themes, and we'll cover some prompts to help us get some ideas for what intentions we want to set for this particular new moon in sidereal Aries. And welcome to the broadcast, Danielle. It's good to have you on. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I hope I hope you weren't on just a minute ago. I was having trouble with my wireless signal because, of course, we have wet spring weather today, and so it's making the wireless signal kind of a little weird. But so Aries, you probably know, Danielle, because you know in astrology, Aries, this is first house if you have Aries rising. So personality, identity, self-expression, the physical body, the role that you play in the world, your appearance, basically. So if you have Aries rising, this new moon in Aries, it's your birthday new moon. You get to use it any way you want to, which is really cool. Taurus rising, this is going to fall into your 12th house. So that's privacy and seclusion, spirituality, the unconscious mind, secrets. That can also be escapism and addiction. Saturn on ascendant. Yes, Danielle, just like me. Oh my goodness. For Gemini rising, this is 11th house. So it'll be a new moon opportunity in your friendship sector. Organizations are governed by the 11th house, and so are hopes and dreams, which is one of my favorite things to do the intention setting practices for, is for moving forward towards our hopes and dreams. For Cancer, if you have Cancer rising, this is a 10th house. So it's a career opportunity. It's a chance to start something new in your professional life, something that could lead to award or recognition down the road. Something related to, your status and achievement. And if you have Leo rising, it's going to be 9th house, so higher education and long distance travel, long distance communication, so things like publishing and broadcasting, live streams count for this. Religion, philosophy, law, those sorts of things all fall under 9th house. Virgo, this is 8th house. So we're getting into financial territory here. Other people's resources that are at your disposal fall under the 8th house. So if you have Virgo rising, that's going to include things like investment earnings or insurance, taxes that you owe, and potentially taxes that are being refunded to you. It can also include inheritance, bonus, or commission income, debt that you have. And then there are some more occult themes that fall under the 8th house, so things like death, rebirth, and transformation. And then for Libra rising, this is 7th house, so partnership, marriages, and business, especially your relationships with other people in general. And then especially where the descendant points in your chart can describe what we reject about ourselves. So that would be particular to Libra rising in this case. For Scorpio rising, this is a 6th house. This is work and health. It's your daily routines. It's people who serve you, like employees or your landscaper, your gardener, your house cleaner, what have you. Also your pets. And employees, if you have them, say if you're a business owner, employees would fall under that as well. For Sagittarius, it's 5th house, which is kind of a fun house. It's creativity and children, true love and romance. Not marriage, of course, remember. But romantic relationships, activities of the heart, basically, pleasurable activities, including sports and other risk-taking ventures, such as gambling, that does fall under fifth house. And for Capricorn, this is fourth house. Getting ahead of myself here. So if you have Capricorn rising, this is going to be home, family, real estate issues that come up right now. Things around parents potentially, and depending on your age, the fourth house also describes your later life. So if you're retirement age or older, this new moon could be describing what's going on in your life right now for this late stage where you have second childhood, basically. You get to play. For Aquarius, it's third house. So communication, travel, this is going to be like local travel over short distances. I would say probably within about 500 miles of where you are, give or take. It can also cover childhood education, siblings, neighbors, your immediate environment. So your neighborhood and your community all fall under third house. So if you have Aquarius rising, those are the themes. And then for Pisces rising, this is second house. So wealth, possessions, movable assets, money that you earn from the work that you do with your own two hands, basically. Not money that comes to you through other people. And not real estate. It's only movable assets, right? So you've got your rising sign, your house, your themes for this particular new moon. If anyone is jumping on late or needs help identifying the house and themes that this particular new moon is related to, just type in the comments, if you will, what your sidereal rising sign is. And I'm actually going to type in the calculator here really quick. If you don't know, this is the link to the calculator where you can look it up for free online. Sidereal tools on the website. Let me make sure I typed that in correctly. We'll see. It'll pull up the preview if I typed it incorrectly, right? So mysticphysick.com/sidereal tools. So, looks like we typed it right. So you can go get your chart up right there. You'll want your ascendant, possibly your sun sign, and it's helpful to bring it with you to the live streams because sometimes we do talk about specific degrees. I don't know if I have anything planned like that for today. But sometimes it can be helpful to bring your chart to the live streams. So I just wanted to share that in case you need it. Now, Aries, let's talk a bit about Aries. So Aries gets credit for being the first sign of the zodiac, even though it's impossible to describe the beginning of a circle. Okay? But for simplicity's sake, when we're having these conversations, you have to start somewhere, right? There has to be a 0 degree. And traditionally that falls to Aries. In part, there's a lot of tropical zodiac influence there because we anchor, through the tropical zodiac, we anchor 0 degrees Aries to the vernal point. Danielle says, lol, LOL, laughing out loud. Yes, I agree. And, honestly, Danielle, sometimes I wonder if that's really not where, our April Fool's traditions have come from, is this disagreement between the sidereal versus tropical zodiacs that happened in slow motion over the years, basically. But as the beginning of the zodiac, Aries represents the newborn, the fresh start, the new beginning, right? So it's the constellation of the Ram. Aries is cardinal fire, so it's very active, very aggressive as an underlying principle, right? It's full of passion and full of initiative, even though Aries is often lacking a little bit on the follow-through end of things, right? Sometimes also lacking on the patience, like the forethought end of things. But Aries very much wants to get started on brand new things and just be creative in that way. It's considered, as I was saying, the first sign of the zodiac. It's optimistic and full of unrealized potential, okay? And this is one of the wonderful things that I do appreciate about Aries. It's the warrior. Aries is the hired man or the mercenary. So this is some of maybe the less savory expressions of Aries as the hired man or the mercenary. But Aries is also the trailblazing, pioneer, the explorer, right? Aries is very naturally competitive, filled with the drive to win, to do, and often Aries is an energy that sees personal challenges where none are intended. So that's one of the ways that Aries can kind of like sneak up on us, right? I don't know if you know many Aries rising or Aries sun people in your lives. Personally, one of the signatures of someone with strong Aries energy in their chart is maybe not being discerning about picking their battles, right? Everything is a competition. Everything is a battle. There's this drive to win, right? And so sometimes where Aries shows up in our chart is where we have to learn to pick our battles. We have to learn to be discerning about what is important enough to fight for and what is unimportant enough that we can be willing to let it go or cultivate a willingness to let it go. So keeping in mind, ideally, the area of life represented by the house that Aries occupies in your natal chart, I want you to consider some of the following prompts and questions. And then what we'll do is we'll give you an opportunity to come back to your paper and write out your intentions for this new moon in Aries cycle. So this is going to start a 30-day lunation cycle, but it's also going to start a longer and somewhat more impactful 6-month lunation cycle before we come to the next full moon in Aries. And so it's that 6-month time frame that I like to encourage you to focus on. Think big in terms of what you want to initiate during our new moon intention setting practices. But I want you to consider, how can you begin to approach life with the wonder of a newborn? Okay, how can you open yourself up to new ways of doing things? And how can you be more adventurous? Is there something you might gain if you open up your life and yourself and experience to being more adventurous? Can you venture into unexplored territory? Would that benefit you in some way to do that? Is there some sort of reward that you stand to gain by taking a willingness and taking those first steps to venture into unexplored territory in your life? How can you make conflict constructive rather than destructive? And this is kind of an important one to think about. I suggest with this one, if you can, take the time to come up with a couple of options and practice implementing them. But especially with this particular new moon, right now with our current transits, we have Mars conjoining Pluto, Mars, of course, being the ruler of this new moon in Aries. And while Mars, aside from the conjunction with Pluto, he's under some pretty friendly aspects, a sextile to Jupiter, which is very helpful. He's in Sagittarius, which is another fire sign, which is quite supportive for Mars. And he's got a sextile right now to Neptune, which can be helpful and supportive. There's the potential for challenge with that conjunction to Pluto, and the potential there is for power struggles, for conflicts with authority figures and people of influence. And so you might see those tendencies or things along those themes coming up in your experience as we move through these current transits and potentially with this next 6-month cycle, because we're dealing with it right here at the new moon. So be aware of that. It's a very volatile aspect, Mars conjoining Pluto. There's a potential for that, like I said, that conflict and aggression that Mars brings. There's a lot of weight to that when Pluto's involved, because Pluto is no astrological slouch, right? He carries weight. If we want to talk about it that way, in the solar system, being one of the heavy-hitting outer planets, he's slower moving. So Pluto is very influential by nature, and being an outer planet ramps up that influence. The outer planets are generally, they have a heavier influence over a longer term. Whereas the personal planets, of course, we feel those more personally. Mars is a personal planet, okay? So as we move through the next 6 months, I want you to really consider, how can you make conflict constructive, not destructive? Construction and constructive and destruction and destructive are both keywords of Aries, of Mars, okay, of that energy. You can choose which you want to give more emphasis to, And this is an opportunity to really consider new ways of doing that, of focusing more on the constructive side of Aries kind of conflict orientation, not aggression. Okay, so come up with some options, practice implementing them, I would say, in the coming week. And maybe even with that one, it might be worth writing an affirmation around, one that you can keep with you. You know, use it with an app on your phone. Affirmation Reminder is a great app that you can use, or you can write it like I do on 3x5 cards and just keep it at your desk. But write an affirmation around finding ways to make conflict, constructive rather than destructive, and keep that affirmation handy so you can come back to it over the coming month, over the coming 6 months, and kind of ingrain it maybe as a habit in your life. But I want you to set intentions for what you want to manifest at this moon around how you can be open to doing things in new ways, how you can be adventurous or pioneering, and how you can take that constructive approach to conflict. So use your paper to write down your statement of intention for this particular new moon cycle. Now, keeping in mind, you're writing your intention. You're not going to take action just yet. You're going to give the space of a couple of days to any new moon. Ideally, like, set your intentions now, but you want to take that first action when you see the first sliver of light of the new moon, when it just begins to undergo that waxing phase. That's the best time to take action, which is usually about 2 days after the moon is new. And that's about the range of time you would want to give the 15th before starting anything major, because Mercury is stationing today. He's ending his retrograde. We're about to return to forward motion. That last day of the retrograde, as well as the first day, those 2 dates, Mercury is highly volatile. He's highly unpredictable, and he can be a little rascal. So don't take action today. I just want you to think about what is your desired outcome. What intentions do you want to set? So you're going to write them out. I really encourage you to write an affirmation around what it is that you want to manifest with each new moon. And then I also encourage you to take a moment to visualize it and even draw it out. That can beef up your manifesting, not just your ability to manifest what you want, but also the speed with which it comes to you by doing that. Danielle says, need to learn by the 22nd, 23rd. Yes. Had a constructive conflict. Is that what you're talking about, Danielle? No doubt. So be as detailed as you want. Don't feel like you need to set a whole bunch of intentions. You can keep it around 1 or 2 or 3. I find the fewer that I focus on, the more easy it is for me to manifest, but there's no harm in doing more if you feel led to do more. But I'm going to run through real quick, just recap these prompts, and then we'll take a break and everyone have their pen and paper with them. So here we go with the prompts. Just to recap, how can you begin to approach life with the wonder of a newborn and open yourself up to new ways of doing things? How can you be more adventurous, and what will you gain by doing so? How can you venture into unexplored territory, and how would that benefit you? And how can you make conflict constructive rather than destructive? So this is an opportunity to implement some options for doing that and practice making that a habit. Okay? How can you be adventurous and pioneering? So these are things I want you to think about. Before we get started writing, I'm just going to share with you this is my moon gazing journal. I'm going to share with you the quote from today's page. It says, in 1941, Maria, I'm going to butcher this last name, Maria Ouspensky, I have no idea, wrote her famous book, The Wolf Man, a tale of one man's transformation into a werewolf. It was later made into a movie. The cast included Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi. Danielle says, I'm learning how to politically talk in business / medically. That is definitely an acquired skill, and it takes some practice. Are you saying you're learning diplomacy? Is that what you're learning, Danielle? How to walk that very diplomatic line and not offend people? And you have to learn that by the 23rd, 24th. Is that what you're saying? We don't have a lot of time. We need to get cracking on getting you set. Okay, so take a few moments with your pen and paper to write out what your intentions are for this new moon in Sidereal Aries. Not plowing, right? Or shoveling. Danielle says, I'm horrible at these intentions, but learning. Exactly. Everyone starts somewhere. It just takes practice. The kicker is framing your intention with positive words. So framing it using language to describe what you want rather than trying to describe what you don't want or what you want to move away from. That's the trick. And then it's a little trickier even than that to write a good affirmation around that using that positive language. But that's the end goal, is to try to do it using positive language. You guys are going to laugh when you see my drawing. Chop more firewood instead to take out all your aggression on the firewood. That would be, that works, right? That works. Gosh. You guys are going to laugh when you see my little drawing. Okay, so for me, I'm taking this in a couple different directions. Because this is 11th house. One of my favorite houses because it covers hopes and dreams. Also covers, of course, social activity and organizations. And it's kind of funny because I'm a total introvert and homebody. And I have a hard time making myself sometimes get out and go out and socialize. Aries... Danielle says, us Aries feel like cage badgers with this moon. That's true, right? So with 11th house, I'm always really drawn to use the new moon and the full moon opportunities to push my hopes and dreams forward. And for those of you who've been members of the group for some time, you might already know. So I'm an artist as well as an astrologer, and art was really kind of my first love. I've always wanted to build a successful art career as a fine artist, and so that's something that I do kind of in the background of my life. Most folks know me through astrology. And I've kind of taken a lot of emphasis off of that in the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months, and I'm ready to change that. One of the things I wanted to do this year was to spend more time making more art and entering more art shows and getting some gallery representation and just being more active in my local arts community. And so that's part of what I'm going to use this particular new moon opportunity to do, and it's kind of fortuitous in some ways. So I'm writing, for my intentions, I wrote that I intend to put energy into my artistic passions as a way to fuel the advancement of my deepest held hopes and dreams of building my artistic career, and that I intend to be more adventurous in my social life and to get out and meet new people and expand my experiences and connections with people by getting involved in my local artist groups and clubs. And one of the ways that I'll be doing that, so I volunteer with the Treasure Valley Artists Alliance. I'm a exhibiting member locally, and so I'll be entering more shows. And probably what I'll do is spend some time with this new moon, maybe in a couple of days or so once we pass this Mercury stationary period, to look at what my show opportunities are for the coming year, right? And maybe make a plan for shows I want to enter into. But the other cool opportunity that I have coming up, and it just strikes me that this is so timely, I just joined a Facebook group for local artists in my area, and I'm going to a brunch on the 18th for my first time being invited to a brunch with this group, where I'm going to get to meet some other local artists that I've never met before and have a nice chat and have brunch and get to know each other and share tips and tricks and best practices, and I'm really, really excited about that. So I'm going to keep an eye on how that pans out. This is my silly little drawing. I was going to draw a bunch of people sitting around the table having brunch, but I decided that could be a little complicated and maybe I don't have the time for that. Danielle says, woohoo, exactly, Danielle, I agree. So this is my drawing of a gallery show that's going to have my work in it. There's going to be a lot of gallery shows that have my work in it this year. I actually have some work that I want to finish up that I would love to get shown, and some new work that I need to start painting, and so that's coming very soon. I'm very excited. I'm sure I'll probably share some of that with you folks when we get to that point of making new art. So if anyone wants to share in the comments what it is, what your new initiation is that you're going to be starting with this new moon. Remember, like I said, don't take action today or even tomorrow. Give it at least another day beyond that, just to kind of give stationary Mercury a little bit of room. Danielle says networking is 11th. Yes, exactly. Social. And that's part of what this is socializing and networking, but within the area of, my most closely held hopes and dreams. And so I'm excited that the two kind of connect together in that way. So this is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, if anyone wants to share, Danielle, maybe if you want to share, that's up to you. If anyone wants to share an affirmation that they have around the intention that they're setting for this new moon in Aries, let me think of what's a good affirmation that I might have, and I'll share it. Let me look through. Excuse me while I make some extra noise on the broadcast. So let's see here. What is going to be my affirmation? This is kind of a good one to choose considering the energetic nature of Mars and Aries. So this is an intention that I've used in the past, and this is one I think I'll dig out and dust off and use for this particular new moon. It is my intention to experience health and energy that lead me to creative adventures. How about that? That is not original. I'm trying to think of where did I pilfer that affirmation. I think this affirmation came from Barbara Marciniak's book, Bringers of the Dawn, which is an excellent read if you happen to get your hands on it. If you can get a copy, definitely buy it. I encourage you to read it. It's an excellent, excellent read. You might even be able to find on YouTube, there was, at one point, there was an audio book recording of it. I want to say that it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours long. It might not have been the whole book, but if you get a chance, I believe it's even narrated by Barbara herself. It's a really wonderful book. Barbara Marciniak, Bringers of the Dawn. Danielle says, I'm learning how not to push, but bring to the table nicely. It is, there's a learning curve to it. And like we were talking about earlier, yeah, it's a little bit of diplomacy, right? Or maybe some ambassadorial skills in developing that. But that's a good compliment. I think that's a great way to balance out your fiery nature there, Danielle. I think that's a great way to challenge and stretch yourself. But thanks everyone for joining me. If you're catching the replay, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to add them in the comment box. I will keep an eye on the comments on the broadcast. If you're catching this on YouTube, feel free to like and share and subscribe to the channel. It's wonderful to have you with us. We'll be, watch the blog. I will do an update and add this to the blog as well. So that if you miss it for any reason live, you can come back and catch the replay. You do have a couple of days here to use this energy, setting your intentions as you plan what action you're going to take here coming up. Danielle says, taming the Mars, embracing the Saturn. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. That is exactly the end goal right there, Danielle. Taming, harnessing Mars's power for the greater good. Yep. And Saturn can help with that. Saturn can help with that, and he'd be mighty pleased too. Whereas if you fight it, he's just going to crack that whip, right? But thanks everyone for joining me on the broadcast. And we'll see you next time. I want to say, don't forget to join us for the next Sidereal Insights, which is coming up, I think, on the 23rd of April. I think we just had our broadcast on the 9th, so our next one will be the 23rd at 1:30 that Monday, Mountain Daylight Time, on the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page. You can join me live, and if you have questions that you'd like me to touch on for that broadcast, feel free to message me or email me at phaedra@mystickphysick.com and let me know ahead of time, and I would be happy to touch on any questions that you have during the Sidereal Insights Astro Update broadcast. And thanks for joining me. We'll see you again next time. Thank you, Danielle. It's been wonderful to have you on, and we'll catch you again. Bye.